and systems. So the 4 pillars are built environment, products, large-scale systems, and services. And you can work across these very easily. I mean, my pillar is EPD, but nobody stops me collaborating, doing research, joint projects, or having students from other pillars. They are just building blocks of a totally different 21st world type of mentality and university. And these pillars are led by some of the prominent people in the world. Jeffrey Huang is a very well-known architect. He runs the architectural and sustainable design pillar. Christine Wood was from University of Texas, one of the leaders in unmanned vehicles, unmanned robots. 30 years in UT, managed to convince him to come to Singapore. Saif was from Minnesota, the guy who started the systems engineering program in Minnesota, now in Singapore. Aditya was from Purdue. In fact, you guys would know WSO2 founder Sanjeev's advisor, now in SUTD as head of the software technology pillar. So we have these world-class people leading these pillars, very open-minded, innovative, and supportive people. So as I said, part of the PhD program includes a professional development, because after 5 years, you're going either into industry or academia, so you need to be trained for that. There's leadership programs, there's communication, there's mentorship, there's networking programs. So we are not just building researchers who do groundbreaking research. We want to build well-rounded next generation 21st century leaders, not just technical, but technical, interpersonal, networking, innovative, creative, so kind of a well-rounded approach. These are some of the PhD students we already have. Mine is not here. I have a very amazing German student who does pretty amazing stuff already within 1 year. And as I said, the university is built upon 4 pillars. So this is like the faculty, individual expertise, and then clustered into different clusters, and then into bigger themes. Like there's a whole initiative on design, there's a whole initiative on gaming, not just gaming for entertainment, but gaming for serious purposes like rehabilitation, think about building the next generation cities. So this is how the whole university, the research structure is arranged. And we have few centers that focus on these areas. International Design Center is the biggest research link between MIT and SUTD. This is $100 million every year. Sorry, $100 million 10 years. 30 million in MIT, 70 million in SUTD. And both places has physical presence. About 85 faculty here. Already within 3 years, we have 600 over publications, 20 over patents, about 5 startup companies emerging out of this center. Lee Kuan Yew Center of Innovative Cities, named after the first Prime Minister of Singapore, thinking about the next generation sustainable built environment cities. iTrust is looking at information security. Temasek Laboratories works with the Singapore Ministry of Defense, thinking about next generation soldier systems, unmanned vehicles, and things like that. SUTD Great Lab focuses on gaming beyond entertainment, for futuristic games, gaming for rehabilitation, games for therapy. So I'm linked with these guys for my MIT collaborative projects. I work with Ministry of Defense on creating interfaces to reduce the cognitive load of soldiers. I work with the Great Lab to come up with gaming aspects for stroke patients to enhance their rehabilitation, as well as for drug addicts to again rehab them through virtual reality scenarios. So as I mentioned, the scholarship is amazing. Limited number of scholarships given by the government only to SUTD. The other universities in Singapore, their scholarship is, I think, $2,000 a month, the stipend. And here we are given the chance to provide extra 50%. If you are a Singaporean, you get another 10% more. So 3,000 stipend as a graduate student, I wish I had that 10 years ago. Like I said, annual conference funding support, tuition fee is waived, guaranteed 6 months overseas research attachment, as well as industry. So it's a maximum 5-year program. Entire 1 year you can be out of the country doing a 6 months internship, 6 months visiting attachment, and then you have your own money to travel. My PhD student has already gone to a couple of most prestigious conferences with his money. So he's just informing me that he's going, and he doesn't have to ask money from me. Of course, the supervisor can top up that travel allowance for the student to go for more places, but with their entitlement, they can visit at least 2 conferences a year. So the next intake is September. Application starts 1st of August, runs till 31st July, and this is the link for you to go and apply. And I have hard copies of some of the brochures which you can take after the talk. So yeah, I would say this is a place if you want to make a real difference, and if you want to be the next generation leaders and trendsetters, then I would encourage you to apply. It's a great experience so far. I've been there for 3 years, and I enjoyed those 3 years. So since I've come through the education in Sri Lanka, I thought, why not come here and sort of share this exciting opportunity with you guys. So I know people in university, especially those who get selected to Katubedda, are the best in Sri Lanka. So this is the place to promote this and get the best from Sri Lanka, and for you guys to make a difference and create opportunity for your youngsters as well. So happy to take any questions from you, and please feel free to come and take these brochures. Yeah, open the floor for questions. Thank you. No questions? It could be 2 things, right? It could be completely unclear when you don't understand anything, then there's no questions, or it could have been the other extreme. Everything is clear, so no questions. Usually those 2 extremes are unlikely, so has to have some questions. Could be regarding my research, could be regarding the PhD program. Any other general advice, anything. Yeah. And I'm not offended. You can just say anything that you want, and yeah. Just let your mind speak. Absorb. No, if your undergraduate degree is English medium, no, GRE or TOEFL is not required. What you need is for this presidential scholarship, first class. Has to be first class honors. If you don't have first class honors, there is a chance if you have a master's degree and some publications already. First class degree and good recommendations. Those 2 are the key things. And again, as you are aware, when you start applying for undergraduate schools and graduate schools, as you go up in the order, things get easier as well as difficult. Easier in the sense that there's not many essays and other exams and all that, but difficult in the sense that you can't just apply online and hope that you will be accepted just because you have a good CV and good degree. Doesn't work that way. So PhD is about 5 years of your life, and as an advisor, you're taking someone, you have to deal with that person for 5 years. So you need to apply online, that's true for the administrative purposes, but you need to go through the website and see who does interesting things, write to them personally, have a chat, have a conversation, and have that kind of informal understanding and arrangement. That if I say I am going to take you, then all you need to have is the minimum requirements. Because when you submit the application, everything is kind of broadcast to faculty, then you pick who you want to work with. So yeah, you need to have the basic requirements, but you need to speak to somebody that you want to work with. So yeah, write to people and then find 3 people who would write good recommendation letters, not people who would just have a template and write and fill that template with your name. People who would write very personalized recommendations. The moment we see a recommendation, we know whether this is a template with your name or whether this is something that was written for you. So sometimes if you think the people who writing the letters are too busy, write a sample for them. Do a draft and send them the draft and say that, okay, I'm making your life easy, I'm giving you a draft, feel free to edit this the way you want and sign this for me. So sometimes that works, because if somebody asks me to write a letter, I might be busy with other things, but if somebody asks me to write a letter and send a draft, I might change few things here and there and submit. So that way, firstly you can get a personalized letter. Secondly, you can make sure that whatever you have done is well captured, because if you just give me the CV, I might miss some of the important points. So you can present your story the way you want, and if you get 3 people right, you can kind of highlight 3 aspects in 3 letters, so it kind of complements each other. Not everybody writes about the same thing. So it's a bit of strategy as well. That's why if you don't play that strategic game, sometimes even the most brightest might not get accepted. I know a case from here. I think I'm allowed to say that he was a junior from my school. One of the best ever that Moroto produced. His GPA was 4.18 when he graduated. Had 1 A, rest was A pluses all throughout 4 years. MIT rejected him first time around. Not because of his academic capability or his his essay or anything. It's just the package wasn't prepared most optimal way. So he worked for Dialog for a year. Then I think he met the right people who would guide him with the right way to apply. Second time around, he got into MIT. He's finishing his PhD now this year, and now doing great. So the point is, just because you have a first class with excellent results, will not get you to the best places. So you need to play a bit of strategic game and understand what it needs to submit an application. I know another guy who did an internship with me 2 years ago, I think from electronics. So he kind of learned how to apply for good places. He didn't have as excellent results as the guy who was rejected first time around, and he submitted for 3-4 places and he got accepted from many, and now he's joining University of Toronto to work with one of the best guys in my field. Yeah, and yeah, so he had an offer from U of T, he had an offer from I think ETH. He was shortlisted by MIT because he presented his work kind of more customized way. He spoke to people, he wrote to many people. He wrote, I remember he sent a very well wrote recommendation letter. So all had to do was change few things here and there and sign it. So he did that part quite well. So he sold what he had the best way. So that's something you might want to think about. Yep. Yeah, so the PhD, you need to specify which pillar you want to work with. You can say, I want to work with product development. You can submit, I think, 3 choices. You can say, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. So let's say, for example, if you are interested in, say, the information technology pillar, you can specify that as the first pillar. Then you probably want to go to the website of that pillar. Every faculty has a research profile. You can see what they have done and you find a person who has been doing things that are kind of interesting to you, drop them an email. Usually people will respond within a couple of days. Send them an email, include your CV, say why you want to apply and why you want to work with him, what made you interested in working with him. Don't just send a default email for everyone, just be very specific to that person. I saw this project, this is kind of very interesting. Because of this feature, it kind of inspired me to write to you. Write that way, and then if the person replies to you, usually they might say, okay, let's have some emails, conversation back and forth, or let's have a Skype chat or something. And once you get to that point, then in your application you can say, I'm interested in applying to this pillar, I want to work with this guy. So when your application goes to that person, he already knows you, has a conversation with you, and unless he has another real good candidate, which he would have told you anyway before that, he would select you. So that's what happens in reality, and that's how you make your chances higher. Yeah, if I get 2 applicants, where one I have spoken, we have some kind of understanding, the other person maybe academically might be slightly better, but I have no idea who this guy is. It's very hard to judge people with CV. I would just go with the person I see. That's how it happens. Oh no, you can do pending. You can do pending. So